Welcome to this presentation on the size of Australia's cooperative and mutual sector. I'm Morris Altman. I'm Dean and Head of the Newcastle Business School, and I'm also a professor of behavioral and institutional economics. I've done quite a lot of research on the cooperative sector over the past 3 or so decades. The presentation today is on the first precise estimates on the cooperative sector for Australia, and this is for value added and employment. And I'm just going to go through some of the summary findings to give you a better view on the strength and the extent of the co-op and mutual sector.
As I just mentioned, this is a presentation on the size of Australia's cooperative and mutual economy. What we're basically going to be doing is estimating the size of the cooperative and mutual sector in Australia relative to Australia's gross domestic product, as well as to employment for the year 2016. And to estimate output, we adopt a value-added methodology to avoid double counting. And a lot of prior estimates, actually, double counting was very much part and parcel of estimating the size of co-op sectors throughout the world, hence exaggerating the size. As with all output and employment estimates, we adopt specific assumptions to generate our estimates. All output and employment estimates have assumptions as one of their key ingredients. So it's not simply when you try to measure the size of the cooperative sector. Assumptions are important all over the place with regards to developing key, robust estimates. With this presentation, this is the first time exact estimates of Australia's cooperative sector have been produced for value added, for output. Here are some key findings. First, with output, the cooperative and mutual sector comprised 8.3% of Australia's GDP in 2016. Now, this is similar to the relative size of New Zealand's cooperative and mutual sector, and one should also mention that the co-op and mutual sectors probably contributed about 2% of world GDP using a value-added measure, and about 4 to 5% of Europe's GDP. And here's just a diagram to illustrate the points I just made. Some other key findings. Supers dominate Australia's co-op and mutual sector. Supers contributed 94% of the co-op and mutual sector's value added, 94%. And the top 10 supers comprised 80% of the co-op and mutual sector's value added. So that's quite large, of course. And here's another diagram illustrating the relative contribution of different areas within the co-op sector to total co-op sector value added, co-ops and mutuals. And here's yet another diagram. In this particular diagram, we have the 10 top supers in 2016 by value added, and you can see the tremendous size of these supers, especially Australian super and uni super. Now some key findings with regards to employment. Co-ops and mutuals comprise 1.4% of Australian employment. Supers contributed 94% of co-op value added, but only 6 to 7% of co-op and mutual employment. So you can see supers dominating output production in terms of value added, but not that powerful or forceful with regards to total Australian employment. And here's just another diagram illustrating the importance of, or the lack of importance, I should say, with regards to super employment to total cooperative employment. Now, another finding with regards to employment and value added is that supers comprise 2% of all co-op and mutual firms, but generated 94% of co-op value added. So just to reiterate the previous point. On the other hand, 98% of co-ops produced 6% of cooperative output. In the non-co-op and mutual sector, most firms are also relatively small, and these relatively small firms generated the vast majority of employment and contributed about 30% to Australian GDP. So same type of scenario, Smaller cooperatives generated a huge percentage of employment, but not much to total value added, and actually much less proportionally than in the non-cooperative sector. Now, the data that we have here, the estimates we've produced, demonstrates the overall and overarching strength of Australia's cooperative sector, but these estimates do not incorporate the multiplier effect of this sector on the rest of the Australian economy. They also do not incorporate the benefits to society of the additional competition that the cooperative and mutual sector has, making Australia more efficient and more equitable. So these are all positives. In the end of the day, what we have and what we have produced are lower bound estimates of the size and impact of the cooperative and mutual sector, which in themselves reveal the significance of the cooperative and mutual sector.
I hope you found this rather brief presentation on the size of Australia's cooperative and mutual sector somewhat enlightening. Although the presentation was brief, it was meant to highlight key features of Australia's cooperative and mutual sector. If you want more details, however, these are available through a report issued by the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals.